Ever wondered why some Amish wear bright blue while others stick to black? You've probably seen them at markets or driving buggies, but there's a hidden story behind those plain clothes. What looks simple to us actually represents 3 centuries of secret rebellions, community splits, and surprising compromises that most people never discover. Survival rules. In 1693, when the first Amish and Mennonite settlers arrived in Pennsylvania, their clothing wasn't a choice. It was survival. Both Anabaptist groups had developed strict dress codes during centuries of religious persecution in Europe. Black outer garments helped believers blend into crowds and avoid detection by authorities. These early fashion rules kept both communities safe from religious violence. Fabric crisis. By the 1850s, the Industrial Revolution created an unexpected crisis for both Amish and Mennonite communities. Mass-produced fabrics flooded American markets, making colorful clothing cheaper than traditional handmade black cloth. Both groups faced harsh economic reality: spend precious resources on expensive traditional fabrics, or adapt to survive financially. While Amish church leaders held secret meetings debating tradition, Mennonite communities began openly discussing practical adaptations to American manufacturing. Fashion wars. This fabric compromise triggered different responses in Amish and Mennonite societies. Amish communities split dramatically. Conservative leaders declared that any deviation from pure black clothing showed dangerous worldliness, while progressive factions argued for practical adaptations. Mennonites approached change more gradually, with regional conferences discussing acceptable modifications. Amish families found themselves attending different churches based on clothing choices, creating Old Order and New Order divisions. Meanwhile, Mennonite communities maintained unity while slowly adopting darker-colored alternatives. These fashion wars reshaped Amish society while Mennonites preserved community cohesion through careful consensus building. Different paths. By the 1880s, the philosophical differences between Amish and Mennonite approaches to fashion became clear. Amish communities chose increasing separation from worldly influences, maintaining stricter dress codes as American fashion became more elaborate and decorative. Mennonites took the opposite approach, embracing gradual integration with American society while preserving modesty principles. Amish women continued wearing traditional prayer caps and plain dresses in approved dark colors. Mennonite women began adopting simpler versions of contemporary American fashion, keeping modest cuts but embracing modern conveniences like lighter fabrics and practical designs. Amish men maintained distinctive suspenders and broad-brimmed hats, while Mennonite men transitioned to dark business attire that helped them blend into American professional environments. Hidden codes. Both Amish and Mennonite communities developed sophisticated clothing communication systems, though with different purposes. Amish dress codes became more elaborate, with hem widths revealing marital status, button placement indicating specific community membership, and fabric textures communicating age and religious standing. These visual codes helped maintain community boundaries as groups scattered across America. Mennonite communities developed subtler coding systems, using clothing variations to indicate regional origins and conference affiliations rather than strict social hierarchies. Amish communities created dozens of micro-variations in hat brims, beard lengths, and suspender styles, each carrying specific meanings to insiders. Mennonites used simpler indicators like collar styles and fabric choices to maintain group identity while participating more fully in broader American society. Women's evolution. Women's fashion evolution revealed stark differences between Amish and Mennonite approaches to modernity. Amish women simplified traditional European dress patterns for American frontier life, but maintained essential elements like prayer caps, long sleeves, and floor-length skirts. Each Amish community developed distinctive apron patterns and cap styles that became group identifiers. Mennonite women embraced more dramatic changes, adopting American-style dresses with modest cuts, shorter sleeves for practical work, and contemporary fabric choices. While Amish women remained primary guardians of unchanged tradition, teaching daughters precise community dress standards, Mennonite women became bridges between traditional modesty and American practicality. Both groups used women's clothing as community boundary markers, but Amish restrictions grew stricter while Mennonite standards became more flexible over time. Men's adaptations. Men's clothing evolution reflected each group's relationship with American economic life. Amish men developed distinctive compromises between European tradition and American practicality. They adopted American-style trousers but maintained European-inspired suspenders instead of belts, which were considered too decorative. Amish hat styles became rigid community markers, with specific brim widths and crown shapes indicating group membership. The beard without mustache tradition strengthened as a visual identifier distinguishing them from Mennonite men. Mennonite men embraced American business attire more completely, adopting contemporary suits, modern hats, and American grooming standards including mustaches. While Amish men's clothing emphasized separation from worldly fashion, Mennonite men's attire facilitated integration into American professional and business environments. Both groups maintained modesty standards, but expressed them through dramatically different relationships with contemporary American masculine fashion. Children's clothing. Children's clothing practices revealed fundamental differences in how Amish and Mennonite communities approached cultural transmission. Amish children wore gender-neutral clothing until age 5, when boys received first suspenders and girls their first bonnets, marking formal entry into community dress expectations. This transition was celebrated as a religious milestone. Mennonite communities adopted more flexible approaches, allowing children simplified versions of adult clothing that accommodated active play while teaching modesty principles gradually. Amish toy-making traditions included miniature adult clothing for dolls, teaching girls precise sewing skills and community dress standards from early childhood. Mennonite children often attended public schools alongside non-Anabaptist peers, requiring clothing that balanced community standards with peer acceptance. Both groups used children's clothing as teaching tools, but Amish emphasized conformity and tradition, while Mennonites stressed adaptability and practical modesty. Color revolution. The acceptance of colors beyond black created entirely different outcomes in Amish and Mennonite communities. Amish color adoption required careful theological consideration and often split communities. Conservative Amish groups viewed any color as dangerous worldliness, while progressive communities argued that color restrictions lacked biblical basis. Dark blue became the first acceptable Amish alternative, followed by deep greens and grays, but only after intense community debates. Mennonites embraced wider color palettes much earlier and with less controversy, incorporating earth tones and deep jewel colors that maintained dignity while allowing personal expression. Modern Amish communities still vary dramatically in color acceptance, with some maintaining strict black-only policies while others permit navy blues and forest greens. Mennonite color choices evolved to include most contemporary colors, provided they maintained modesty and avoided flashy patterns or bright decorative elements. Technology revolution. The 20th century brought unprecedented challenges that both Amish and Mennonite communities had to navigate, though with different outcomes. Synthetic fabrics offered durability and easy care that traditional natural fibers couldn't match. Amish men working in construction discovered that traditional cotton clothing could be dangerous around machinery, leading to reluctant acceptance of synthetic work clothes meeting safety standards. Mennonite communities embraced these technological advances more readily, adopting synthetic fabrics for their practical benefits while maintaining modest cuts and styles. Both groups faced road safety requirements that forced acceptance of reflective strips on clothing and buggies. Amish women developed subtle adaptations like shorter hems for specific work situations, while Mennonite women more openly adopted contemporary clothing for different occupations. The irony wasn't lost on observers. Communities that had rejected worldly fashion were now incorporating high-tech fabrics, surpassing mainstream clothing and functionality. Two worlds. The contrast between modern American fashion culture and Amish Mennonite modesty principles reveals fundamentally different worldviews, though each community responds differently to these pressures. While American fashion emphasizes individual expression and trend following, Both Amish and Mennonite communities prioritize modesty and community values, but express these differently. Modern Americans spend an average of $1,800 annually on clothing, constantly updating wardrobes. Amish families invest in high-quality, handmade garments designed to last decades, while Mennonite families seek durable, modest clothing from both traditional and contemporary sources.
The modern fashion industry thrives on rapid consumption and planned obsolescence. Amish communities practice radical sustainability, mending and passing down garments through generations. Mennonite communities balance sustainability with practical needs, often purchasing quality contemporary clothing that meets modesty standards. Where American fashion celebrates body-conscious designs, Amish clothing deliberately conceals body shape to avoid vanity. Mennonite clothing maintains modesty while allowing more contemporary silhouettes. Social media culture has transformed American fashion into performance art, with outfit choices documented for public approval. Amish communities view such displays as dangerous pride, maintaining dress codes preventing individual distinction. Mennonite communities generally avoid fashion displays, while participating more fully in contemporary professional environments. The economic implications differ significantly. Americans accumulate dozens of outfits for different occasions, while typical Amish women own 5 dresses serving all situations. Mennonite women typically own more varied wardrobes than Amish, but far fewer items than mainstream Americans. This philosophical divide extends to children's clothing. Where American parents use fashion to express personality, Amish children wear identical styles regardless of family wealth. And Mennonite families balance community standards with children's social needs. Regional differences. Geographic location significantly influenced how both Amish and Mennonite fashion evolved across America, creating distinct regional variations within each community. Pennsylvania Amish and Mennonite communities, being the oldest settlements, maintained the most conservative dress traditions in their respective styles. Ohio Amish groups developed slightly more flexible interpretations of traditional dress, while Ohio Mennonites embraced American fashions more readily than their Pennsylvania cousins. Indiana Amish communities pioneered some progressive adaptations like brighter colors, while Indiana Mennonites fully integrated contemporary modest fashion. Kansas and Missouri Mennonites became indistinguishable from mainstream modest dress, while Kansas Amish maintained stricter traditional standards. Southern Amish and Mennonite communities both adapted clothing for hot climates, developing lighter fabrics and practical modifications. Western settlements of both groups faced unique ranch work challenges requiring practical adaptations that sometimes conflicted with traditional dress codes, creating regional subcultures within broader Anabaptist identity. Wedding traditions. Marriage clothing traditions evolved differently in Amish and Mennonite communities while maintaining symbolic importance for both groups. Traditional European Anabaptist weddings required elaborate black ceremonial garments that few American communities could afford. Amish weddings adapted to use the bride's best dress in approved dark colors, typically navy blue or purple, which she would wear for special occasions throughout life and eventually as burial clothes. Mennonite wedding traditions embraced white or light-colored dresses earlier, reflecting their integration with American customs, though maintaining modest cuts and styles. Amish men's wedding attire followed practical patterns, with wedding suits serving as finest clothing for decades. Mennonite grooms often wore contemporary formal wear appropriate for the occasion. Modern Amish weddings still reflect practical traditions with multi-purpose wedding clothing, while Mennonite weddings vary from traditional plain dress to contemporary modest formal wear, depending on specific community and conference affiliations. Business, Empire Traditional, Amish and Mennonite clothing has become a multi-million-dollar industry serving both communities and outside markets, though each group approaches commercialization differently. Amish seamstresses who once sewed only for families now operate thriving businesses selling traditional garments to their communities and curious outsiders. A single hand-sewn Amish dress requires 15 to 20 hours of work and costs $200 to $400, making it more expensive than designer garments. Mennonite-owned businesses often bridge traditional and contemporary markets, producing modest clothing for both Mennonite customers and mainstream modest fashion consumers. Mennonite-owned textile companies supply fabrics specifically designed for plain communities, creating specialized markets for solid-colored, modest-cut clothing meeting religious requirements while incorporating modern comfort features. Both Amish and Mennonite businesses now sell online to customers seeking modest, well-made garments. The economic impact extends beyond clothing itself, with both traditions influencing mainstream modest fashion trends. Major retailers now create prairie and modest clothing lines inspired by traditional plain dress. Tourism plays significant roles for both communities, though Amish businesses often struggle more with balancing authenticity and commercial success. Mennonite businesses more readily embrace contemporary marketing while maintaining community values. This commercialization creates different tensions. Amish communities worry about sacred traditions becoming entertainment, while Mennonite businesses navigate between traditional values and market demands. Tourism affects Amish and Mennonite communities differently, though both experience challenges from public fascination with their traditional clothing. Lancaster County receives over 8 million visitors annually, many specifically interested in observing traditional plain dress from both communities. This constant scrutiny makes Amish members increasingly self-conscious about their appearance, leading to more careful attention to clothing details and community conformity. Mennonite communities, being more integrated into mainstream society, experience less tourist pressure, but still face curiosity about their modest dress choices. The commodification of plain fashion through tourist shops selling authentic clothing creates complex feelings in both communities. While economic benefits are significant, many Amish members worry about sacred traditions becoming commercial entertainment. Mennonite communities generally feel less threatened by commercialization, since their clothing is already closer to mainstream. Modest fashion. Tourist photography and social media posts featuring community members have sparked different responses. Amish communities have become more conservative in dress, emphasizing differences from mainstream fashion to maintain distinct identity. Mennonite communities generally accept photography more readily. The Amish tourism industry has created stereotypical images that don't reflect diversity of actual practices in either community. Young adults from both groups report feeling like living museum exhibits, though this affects Amish youth more severely in their community decisions. Future evolution. Today's Amish and Mennonite communities face similar challenges to their clothing traditions but respond differently based on their distinct philosophies. Climate change affects both groups' traditional fabric choices, with wool and cotton garments proving uncomfortably hot during severe summers. Some Amish communities quietly adopt lighter synthetic blends after careful consideration, while Mennonite communities more openly embrace climate-appropriate fabrics. Both groups' younger generations question clothing rules through different lenses. Amish youth push for minor modifications while maintaining overall tradition, while Mennonite youth seek balance between community identity and contemporary participation. Social media and tourism have made both traditions more visible, creating pride and self-consciousness in different ways. Amish communities often respond by becoming more conservative, while Mennonite communities generally adapt more flexibly. Environmental concerns influence both groups' fabric choices, with some embracing organic and sustainable materials aligning with stewardship values. The COVID-19 pandemic required both communities to address face masks, leading to theological discussions about new clothing items. Economic opportunities continue pressuring traditional dress codes as members work in mainstream industries. Despite pressures, Surveys show over 85% of Amish youth and 70% of Mennonite youth maintain traditional modest dress, suggesting both. Traditions retain cultural significance while continuing evolution through different, adaptive strategies. The evolution of Amish and Mennonite fashion reveals a surprising truth. Traditions survive not by remaining frozen in time, but by adapting thoughtfully to new realities. While both communities share Anabaptist roots and modesty values, their different approaches to change have created distinct fashion identities. What appears to outsiders as simple plain dress actually represents centuries of careful negotiation. Between faith and practicality, tradition and survival, separation and engagement with the modern world.